everyone, and welcome. I'm Jennifer, and you are listening to the Ego Next Door podcast. Today, I'm going to share more about my story, and we will begin by decoding several manipulation tactics used by narcissists to help you gain awareness and what to look out for when dealing with these individuals. In 1936, Dale Carnegie wrote a book with a very strong title and an even stronger level of influence: How to Make Friends and Influence People. 60 years later, this title inspired by Toby Young's memoir called How to Lose Friends and Alienate People, which was later adapted to cinema. If narcissists wrote an accurate autobiography of the real impact they have caused in the world, I would suggest a fusion among these two titles. What are friends when you can influence and alienate people? This is how narcissists could be accurately depicted, and honestly, I find it to be a pretty accurate motto of their way of life. Their capacity to apply manipulation tactics could be seen as robotic, yet it comes so naturally to them that the real question I would pose is, what came first, narcissism or manipulation tactics? Ultimately, this question seems to get us to the exact same place the infamous chicken or egg question does: nowhere. About manipulation tactics, a quick search on Google will find you gasping for air, wondering where to begin when it comes to lists and descriptions. When it comes to classifying and categorizing manipulation tactics, the truth is that scholars haven't come to a consensus because many even believe that narcissism is more of a spectrum than a specific personality trait. In my opinion, the nature of narcissism is too complex and enigmatic and difficult to identify, and precisely due to its nature. I mean, besides victim testimonies and collected evidence of sociopathic behavior in criminology and in our history books, what hard evidence can there be directly from the horse's mouth if in this case the horse is capable of entangling even the smartest person in the room? Either way, after a lot of research from various sources available in the episode notes section, it is possible to identify at least 10 different manipulation tactics. It is important to refer that these tactics might be identified with alternative names, and that in this podcast, when discussing manipulation, we will always be referring back to these 10 tactics and their respective definition. And these are gaslighting, love bombing, triangulation, projection, playing the victim, smear campaign, retaliation, the silent treatment, guilt tripping, and hoovering. Right now, most of these words might either sound familiar or totally alien to you, but either way it is fine because I will be covering each of them individually, and before that explaining the definition of each in a way that you can relate and perhaps even remember some things that you have dealt with in your personal life. Before starting, I would like to explain that although I focus my examples on family and romantic relationships, in the future, I will be approaching narcissism not only in personal life relationships, but in work and general social environments as well. When we are talking about narcissists, it is truly a one-size-fits-all approach, because regardless of the environment, the typical behaviors and manipulation tactics are more or less identical. So let's get to it. Gaslighting can be defined as the use of statements that deny your own truth and make you question your own memory, perception, and sanity. People who gaslight you will commonly use phrases such as, "It wasn't that bad," "It didn't happen like that," or "You must be losing your mind." Love bombing is the practice of giving someone excessive affection, showering with attention, extravagant gifts, professing their love to you very fast, and pretty much appearing to be moving too quickly. Triangulation is when, in the midst of conflict, someone tries to bring a third person into the discussion in order to benefit them. This third person will be encouraged to take their side or help work things out. Projection is when someone attributes their insecurities, undesirable characteristics, negative emotions, and shortcomings onto you. When projecting, usually their statements will seem to conjure up nonsensical accusations and not really add up to the facts. Playing the victim is when someone distorts reality by attempting to turn any sympathy and attention onto themselves, especially after engaging in harmful behaviors towards someone else, or being faced with the consequences of their damaging actions. A smear campaign is when someone publicly attempts to discredit you by making false accusations. This will usually be done to anyone who knows you or is close to you to possibly be convinced to take sides, leaving you isolated and with no one to support you. Narcissists will be very invested in exaggerating the facts or stirring up a web of lies if it means destroying your reputation and burning up your bridges. Retaliation is when someone goes into revenge-seeking mode and desires to punish you if they believe that you have wronged them. In the case of narcissists, retaliation can be put into action anytime you do not act according to their needs or do not feed into their narrative by confirming their grandiose sense of self. They will go out of their way to speak ill of you, defame your character, or attempt to harass or stalk you. The silent treatment is a stubborn refusal to communicate verbally, especially after a recent argument or disagreement, or when you do not have what they expect of you, or do not do what they expect of you. This is done to punish, sabotage, and make you fearful. In the long run, this can make you more complacent to their control, as to avoid another intentional communication withdrawal. Guilt tripping is when someone causes you to feel guilty or a sense of responsibility to change your behavior or take a specific action. This person will be sure to point out their own efforts and hard work, or make sarcastic, passive-aggressive remarks to make you feel as if you have fallen short. And finally, there is hoovering. Hoovering can happen when you begin distancing yourself from someone toxic or decide to end the relationship completely. The other person will attempt to suck you back into the toxic relationship and convince you of their undying love for you. Narcissists do not do this because they realize they have feelings for you or they care about you, or because they genuinely want to reconcile, but they do it because they crave the attention you gave them and they are selfishly desperate. They will frequently begin a love bombing phase or become the person you always dreamt that they would be until they suck you back in, and then the manipulation cycle starts all over again. It is important to realize that not everyone that uses one of these tactics should be outrightly labeled as a narcissist. The difference between a pure narcissist and someone with a soul, how I call it, is how they respond when confronted with their actions, faced with consequences, or when someone expresses their hurt or concern regarding their behaviors. Anyone is capable of unknowingly using manipulation tactic as a defense mechanism to protect their own feelings, or to avoid feeling the discomfort of acknowledging a potential wrongdoing. The difference is that ultimately a person's true nature will shine through, both if they are given all the power or when they lose everything. As Robert G. Ingersoll would say, if you want to find out what a man is to the bottom, give him power. Nothing discloses real character like the use of power. It is easy for the weak to be gentle. Most people can bear adversity. But if you wish to know what a man really is, give him power. This is the supreme test. By the way, this citation is taken from a speech written by Robert G. Ingersoll, referring to President Lincoln. All of this information might seem like a lot at the moment, and that might feel especially intimidating, overwhelming, and even scary. It is indeed a bit frightening to start thinking that people who do these things to anyone have the capacity to do it, even to their own children. And they're just out there in the open, free and seeking for a new victim to give them the supply they need to function. But don't be fooled. Narcissists do not take too long to reveal themselves before you, as long as you remain attentive. They are not representative of intelligence nor master manipulators. And if you are informed, you can easily outsmart a narcissist and catch them in their own lies. Of course, even when you do become more fully aware of what they are doing to you, and when they are doing it, you must not engage as you wish, at least right away. Once you do see them for who they really are, you will feel the impulse to talk and let them know that you are in on their little game, especially because you must remember that narcissists have nothing to live for besides the lies that they tell themselves, whereas you do. Once you realize what is going on, you must act nonchalant and try your best to not change your behavior all of a sudden, because if they suspect that you are acting different or distancing yourself, they will come after you either aggressively or attempt another surprise manipulation tactic. And since you are not soulless like they are, you will fall in their trap again or start doubting yourself again, especially if you have been manipulated by them for a long time. The main goal here is that you must stay safe, protect yourself at all costs, and reduce the potential harm and consequences from slowly eliminating their supply. So this is the most important advice when it comes to how to act with them, as you start being able to pinpoint their behavior and gain awareness of their sick little games. Do not give them ammunition. Do not take them at face value. Do not try to justify or explain yourself. Do not minimize their outrageous behavior. Do not expect them to own their part. Do not try to beat them at their own game. Do not expect loyalty. Do not personalize what they do. Do not expect empathy. And do not underestimate the power of narcissism. This last one is especially important to keep in mind at all times. And I'm telling you this because had I not overestimated the narcissist that I was dealing with, I would probably not be here right now giving you the advice that at the time I gave myself. On the next episodes, I will talk in more detail about this list of advice. I will begin sharing more about the manipulation tactics introduced today and getting down to terms such as scapegoat, enabler, and flying monkeys. Thank you for listening to the Ego Next Door podcast. See you soon, and I hope you have a wonderful day. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you would like to access all our updates and free resources, make sure to follow us on our socials at Ego Next Door on Instagram and Twitter. The Ego Next Door podcast is presented solely for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The content here is not intended to serve as a substitute for the consultation, diagnosis, or medical treatment of a qualified healthcare provider. Reliance on any information provided here is at your own risk. If you or someone you know is in crisis or experiencing suicidal thoughts, please reach out immediately to someone who can help right away. Call your national emergency services or go to the nearest hospital.